This is Histories and Mysteries. I'm one of your hosts, Ashley, and this is
Jessica. And on this week's episode, Ashley is going to be talking about the bubonic plague, and I'm going to be talking about the Spanish influenza. So it's our plague episode.
Yay!
Yay! I mean, in light of COVID right now, I think we could all use a little more doom and gloom. So,
Of course, doom and gloom, plague, pandemic. Yeah. Let's just add on.
Perfect. Super excited.
So I have to tell you the story, Jessica. Last night, being, I think, what am I, like 6 or 7 months pregnant? I have to get up in the middle of the night every night to use the bathroom. And as we've talked about on the show many, many times, I don't like mirrors.
Why not?
I don't like them at night.
Why ever not?
Why ever not? So the way my bathroom's set up is the bathroom is like attached to my bedroom. You walk in and on the left is like a his and her sink and it's got like a big mirror. And then you just keep going straight and there's like the toilet. And so whenever I walk in, I just always look down. Like I refuse to look in the mirror, right?
Yep. Understandable.
So another little tidbit of information is my husband's working nights right now. So our main bathroom toilet is broken and he's got to fix it, but he just hasn't had time to do it yet. And so I get up in the middle of the night, I go to the bathroom, I walk out, and there's a figure standing there.
Oh no.
And it's just staring at me. And so I kind of like stop and I look at it and it doesn't move. It's not moving. It's just standing there staring at me. And I kind of shrivel back and it still doesn't move. And it was by the light switch. So I couldn't even hit the light switch. And this guttural, like, I don't even know what it was, of oh my God came out of me. It was like, oh my God. And my husband goes, baby, it's me. I'm sorry. I thought you knew it was me.
Why was
his husband standing there waiting to use the bathroom?
Just standing there so still.
He was so still. Even when I stopped and I looked at him and he didn't move.
Like just standing there, what a fucking creeper.
The sound I must have made because he immediately like jumped down. I was like, it's me. I'm so sorry. Like I must have had such terror in my voice.
Oh my goodness.
And the sad thing is, the saddest of them all is that my initial thought was not, there's an intruder in my house. My initial thought was, something came out of my mirror to kill me. That was my initial thought.
Oh my goodness.
So I think we've definitely been doing too scary of episodes.
Probably.
Oh my gosh.
Showering one night and I only turned the shower light on so the rest of the bathroom was dark. Mm. And we have 3 glass walls on our shower. So all I could see was my reflection in all 3 of them. And then of course in my head it just popped in Bloody Mary.
Oh no.
Like, no, don't think of that. And then all of a sudden it's like Zozo and I'm like, no, brain, why?
So once you start thinking about it, you can't stop.
So I had to so it was just so scary because I'm like, I just kept telling myself, like, don't look in the reflection anymore. Just like try and shower with your eyes closed. Oh my goodness.
Oh goodness. Yeah, so that's how I died this morning.
Well, my dog was curled between my legs this afternoon. And I drank some water and I don't know what happened, but it like went down the wrong pipe. And so like I started coughing, almost came out through my nose. And I was just like hacking away. And he's like, I'm just going to piece right out. So he crawls over me, walks to the other side of the couch, lays down. He lets out the biggest huff while he looks at me with such disgust that I bothered him.
How dare you interrupt his peaceful sleep?
Literally. I'm like,
with your dying.
Like, what a little shithead.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny.
Oh, so we've had a day. Oh my goodness, your
Yes, but
story
now we
cracks
are
me up,
here
though.
and ready to talk about the plague.
Yes, just had to give a little lightheartedness before the plague talk.
Yeah.
So,
Oh goodness. All
all
right,
right.
so I will get in on it. I am, again, like she said, talking about the bubonic plague or the Black Death or the Black Plague or whatever you want to call the many names it has. And so I got this a lot of the information from this really cool documentary called it's like a Great Courses docu-series. And it's hosted by, I'm probably gonna say her name wrong, but Dorsey Armstrong. And she's a PhD in like medieval English or something like that. And I actually had to sign up for like a 7-day free trial, which I have to remember to cancel now. Now that I'm done with it, I gotta go cancel it.
Definitely don't
But
forget
it's
that.
not yeah. But it's not like a really cool documentary. It's not like they don't have like reenactments or anything like that. It's just like her kind of lecturing and they show like pictures and stuff. So if you like more like informational things, I would really recommend checking it out. If you're looking for something more entertaining, that's probably not the right one. But
No.
it gave a lot of really good information. It was a 24-part series.
Holy guacamole.
Yeah, there was a lot to it. And then I got some information from the BBC and the Ancient History Encyclopedia. So, our story starts in Florence, Italy, in late January 1348, where the Black Plague first showed up in Europe. So, they think that it started in China, which I hate to say that, but because of everything going on right now, but they think it started in China and then using trade routes slowly worked its way across into Europe that way. As it spread through Florence, dead bodies were piled everywhere. People were dying in their houses, and this once beautiful city was transformed into a nightmare. People at the time would chronicle the events, and one such person said that the churches ran out of graves, so they would dig mass grave trenches and pile the bodies up. Each layer would get like a light dusting of dirt before adding another layer of bodies.
Ew.
One writer left a blank space at the end of his journal saying it was there for anyone left alive who wanted to chronicle like basically the aftermath of this. So they thought it was the end of the world. They didn't think anybody would be left alive, you know.
Do you cover Poveglia Island or Poveglia Island?
No.
However you say it.
Because
I think that's where they like put a bunch of the bodies because it's an island in Italy.
Oh, okay.
Poveglia. It's an island in Venice, Italy.
Huh.
Yeah, the plagued people were shipped off to Poveglia Island.
Oh.
The bubonic plague, yep.
Like their bodies or like the people infected?
The people infected, and then I think that they died there, and then their bodies just
okay.
like piled up there, and there's like a bunch of like it's very haunted.
Oh.
Like Ghost
creepy.
Adventures went there.
Oh. Man, I wish I would have put that in my notes. No, I don't know anything about that.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. That sounds really cool.
Continue.
Because I don't stay in Italy very long. I kind of bounce to Europe pretty quickly here.
Isn't Italy in Europe?
Sorry, I bounced to England pretty quickly here. England, not Europe.
Okay.
Yes, Italy is in Europe.
I was concerned for my brain there.
No, I just misspoke. My bad. Okay. So by April of 1348, there were 60 to 80 deaths per day.
Wow.
And all of the numbers that I give are going to be ranges like that because obviously back then, and being that it was so long ago, they didn't have the best record keeping, nor, did all of it survive to modern day times. So a lot of the ways they counted, like how people died, they had to do different things like how often the turnover of clergy was to really get a good example of like how many clergymen were dying. Like when a new clergyman came in, they knew that probably one of them died. They could also look at like wills that were enacted upon, to see, okay, well, this person obviously died because they carried out his will. So stuff like that to kind of get an estimate of the amount of people that died during this. Okay. So they're all the numbers will be ranges.
That'll be in my story too.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said, 60 to 80 deaths per day. And so the city leaders started to put some stipulations and regulations. And one of them was that they ordered all of the clothes of sick people or those who died to be destroyed instead of passed on. And, back then, they all had to make their own clothes. So clothes were expensive and hard to make and took time. So they usually just passed them on, regardless. So this was quite a big undertaking that they had to just destroy these things that, take them quite a bit of time to make. All prostitutes were ordered out of the city for two reasons. One, because, they were in close proximity of a lot of people. And it could also be that a lot of people actually believe that the plague was a punishment from God for sinful behavior. And so they were trying to cleanse the city. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. They also forbade anyone from Pisa or Genoa to enter Florence because they thought that's where the plague was coming from. And they were right. That's one of their main trade routes of where the plague was coming in from. But even with all of this, by July and August, there were about 400 deaths per day. So in a 4-month time period, it went from 60 to 80 deaths to about 400.
Wow.
In 4 years, the population dropped to less than half of what it had been before the plague.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. One author described people during this time as panic-stricken animals. He said that neighbors would refuse assistance to neighbors. Fathers and mothers would refuse to nurse or assist their own children. Many people dropped dead in the streets, both by night and by day, and many others who died in their houses drew the attention of their neighbors by the smell of their rotting corpses. And that was a quote from him. So the plague presented itself by what they called large buboes, which bubonic buboes is where that comes from. And it's basically like a big old pus-filled boil. So yummy.
I'm eating cookies right now, and that's
sorry about that. And these buboes usually showed up in the groin or under the armpits because it attacked the lymph nodes. And obviously, we have lymph nodes in the groins and under the armpits. So that's usually where these boils would show up. And they said that the boils could grow to the size of an apple and were extremely painful.
I wish everybody could see my face right now.
Yuck. Yeah. And they would also have the typical kind of flu type symptoms, the fever, chills, vomiting, diarrhea, aches and pains, and then obviously eventually death. In England, the death rate was about 50%, but in some communities it was as high as 70 or 80% of the population. Yeah. And that's of the population, not of the people who got it. So as we said, the plague entered England and quickly spread across the countries. Cities heard it was coming, one such city being Gloucester. And Gloucester tried to shut its gates to any incoming people, but it was too late. The Black Death was already at their city. For some reason, the plague didn't hit London until later, but once... Stupid cat.
Is that the cat?
But, yeah. But once it did, it hit really hard, and they lost half of their population.
Wow.
Some from the plague, some from people fleeing to the countryside.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. So for London, the plague came from 3 main ways. There was 2 main cities that traded with London, so they came in that way, and then they also got hit through the harbor. So that's why it was so... And I mean, London was a huge city with a lot of concentrated population. One monastery in London lost 42 of their 52 monks.
Wow.
Yeah. and whole villages died. Get this. This is a fact that really had no place in my story, but I thought it was interesting. So you know how peasants would work on land and the land was owned by like a lord and they had to pay taxes to the lord and the lord would like offer them protection, right?
Yes.
So if a peasant worked under the lord's protection and he died, the family of the dead person had to pay the lord with their best animal to compensate for the loss of labor the lord would experience.
Yep. Isn't that mess?
Which is ridiculous. Yes. But so during the plague, so many people were dying that these lords were getting like an abundance of animals that they couldn't do anything with it. And because they had so many animals, they would try and sell them, but this was like happening all over. So the price of livestock went way down. So a lot of them, did the noble thing and said, oh no, you don't have to pay me the animal. It's fine. You keep it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So noble. You lost a family member, but keep your pet.
Yeah, exactly. Ugh. Okay, so obviously this is medieval times. They didn't know, and one of the reasons why this was so awful is because they didn't know a lot about medicine, about the body, about how things worked. So they had some very interesting ideas on how to get rid of the plague.
I'm sure they did.
So starting off simple, some people would just carry like flowers or strong smelling herbs in front of their nose and mouth to ward off the disease. And some refused to purchase goods from ships of plague infected areas. Okay, smart. Awesome. But these get really weird. The cures that the doctors did, and these were very common. The doctors would try rubbing onions and herbs onto the boils. They would chop up a snake and rub that into the boils.
Ew.
They would cut a pigeon up and rub it all over the body.
Ugh.
This one's really gross.
Others weren't?
This one's real bad. They would take a chicken.
No.
And they would pluck all the feathers from its butt and back.
No.
And then they would tie the chicken to the boil, thinking that the chicken would pull the disease out of the person.
Ugh.
So obviously this poor chicken gets the plague because it affected both animals and humans. And the chicken would die. And then the person would generally die as well soon after. They would tell patients to drink vinegar. They would have them eat like a crushed up mineral concoction, which was like a liquid. So they'd make some kind of like liquid with it. If you were rich, they would crush up emeralds and put that in a liquid, and that's what you would drink. If you were poor, they would have you drink arsenic or mercury. So
they would just die anyways.
Yeah, they would just die a little bit quicker. So I guess that's probably better than suffering.
This reminds me of the Mercy Brown story where they made her brother drink her like heart and whatever else.
Yeah.
Ugh, so gross.
They would tell them to sit close to a fire because they thought the heat would draw out the like evil, or in a sewer because they thought the bad air would draw out the bad air of the plague.
Sorry.
This is the one that I think is the most out there. But apparently back then they believed in unicorns. And they believe
they don't exist. Are you sure?
I mean, maybe, but
did you just ruin this for me?
Well, back then, them and Jessica believed in unicorns. But they believed that to draw out a unicorn, you had to have a virgin. So they would take a virgin to draw out a unicorn. They would get the unicorn. And then the doctor would take the horn and grind it up and make like a magical cure. And doctors claimed to have this unicorn powder, so they were all a bunch of liars.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously they would do like the bloodletting and the cupping, you know, the common stuff that day. And eventually they kind of caught on and they began to lance the buboes to release the infection, which actually helped a lot more.
Yes, that's legitimate.
Yes, exactly. Many cities enacted a quarantine, and Milan actually created, you know what? Maybe this is what you were talking about. I have in here, they created a housing type structure outside of the city where those infected would be tended to. So maybe it was that island.
Yeah, because it was in Venice,
Oh, okay.
Poveglia, so I believe.
Maybe it's different then.
Yeah, it's in Venice, Italy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so Milan did create like a housing type structure outside of the city. And this is where we see the famous plague doctor hats, because those were Italian.
Beautiful.
They thought it would be helpful, and this makes sense too. So they thought it would be helpful to distance the doctor's like mouth and nose from their patients, which is why they had that long beak. And they also, obviously, like a lot of us have heard, stuffed it with flowers and herbs to help with the stench.
Yeah.
So like I had mentioned earlier, the people of this time were deeply religious and believed that this was a punishment by God. So some would do what's called that's not the right word. That's not a word. I have in here flagellate. I don't think flagellate's the right word though.
Flatulate?
Flagellate? Is that a word? Let me Google it. Did I make up a word for my notes? Flagellate. Flagellation. Flagellate. No, that's right. Okay, that's right. Okay. They would flagellate. So this consisted of men walking from town to town, beating themselves and each other with thick leather straps covered in sharp pieces of metal. They would do this 3 times a day for 33 and a half days and then move to the next town. This was supposed to pay their penance to God and to show God their dedication. Some people also believe they had to rid their communities of heretics, so hence getting rid of the prostitutes. And this is really bad. Being deeply Christian, they also believe that Jewish people were heretics, so they began a massacre of Jewish people.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, poor Jewish people. Every big thing that ever happened in history, it's like involves them getting massacred.
I know, it's not fair.
No.
And it's not nice. It's like, awful. Why? They're just trying to live.
I know, right? So the plague finally started to slow as they began requiring sailors to quarantine for 30 to 40 days after arriving at a port.
Holy crap.
Yeah. By the end of the plague's reign, it took an estimated 30 million people, or 30 to 50% of Europe's population.
Wow.
Yeah. Every so often, the plague would show up again in society. One such resurgence, and the last large one, was in the 1600s. During this outbreak, about 1/4 of London's population died, and one village basically saved the world, and I think that they should be talked about. So it's a city called, I'm probably going to say this wrong, Eyam. It's Eyam.
I have no idea.
And yeah, your guess is as good as mine. So during the summer of 1665, a merchant from London had sent cloth to a tailor in the city, Eyam, in the city of Eyam. The cloth was infested with fleas, and within days, the merchant, his assistant, and their families all died from the plague.
What?
So at this point, the resurgence of the plague was basically just in kind of like the south of England, but coming to this village meant, I would assume based on like their trade routes, that it would spread to the north. So this village decided to quarantine themselves by creating a stone barrier around their city, and even the healthy ones stayed, so no one left. All villagers vowed not to cross the border. And while it did keep people from coming into the city, it also kept those trapped inside with the sick. By these boundaries, villagers would leave coins, and then nearby merchants would come collect the coins and leave the goods, such as like food and stuff, for the city. By the end of August 1666, 267 people had died in a village of 344.
Whoa.
Yeah, these people were selfless heroes.
Yeah.
In present time, an average of 1,000 to 2,000 people worldwide get the plague every year, with about 7 cases in the U.S. Most commonly found in the Southwest, like Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado.
Lucky you.
I know. The highest rate of plague can be found in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Madagascar, and Peru. In 2017, an outbreak in Madagascar infected around 2,350 people, killing about 200. And that was like the last kind of bigger outbreak for our time. But it is still around, and it is still killing people.
That's crazy. I didn't think it, like, I thought that it was kaput.
Yeah. Well, I think it's so much easier for us to fight it off now. But in those, third world countries, they have a harder time. So,
Oh, of course.
Yeah. But that is the story of the bubonic plague.
Cool. Good story.
Thanks.
Mine's more like a modern story, and it's legitimately COVID on crack. So,
what's kind of interesting to think about is that maybe like in 50, 60 years from now, someone will be doing a podcast on COVID.
Mm-hmm. That would be cool to think about.
Yeah.
After we've all survived it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to be doing the Spanish influenza. I used the CDC government website. I used history.com and healthline.com. So it infected an estimated 500 million people around the globe in the year 1918.
Wow, I didn't know it was that many.
Yeah. It then claimed the lives of about 20 to 50 million people. It is alleged that the total was up around 100 million. However, as you had mentioned in your last story, there is a lack of medical record upkeep during that time, so who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Given the intensity of this, most people believe that everyone who was infected died. However, there's only a 20% mortality rate among the infected.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so at least the mortality rate wasn't like... I mean, there was a lot of people that died, but at least the mortality rate wasn't higher. Because that could have been a lot more disastrous.
Right, yeah.
Especially because, like, your story mostly just affected Europe,
For sure,
right?
Yeah.
And then this influenza affected
Well, I mean, you
most
figure...
of the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, you figure America and Canada, like, the Americas weren't around yet.
Yeah,
I mean, they were
exactly.
around, and just people lived here, but...
Yeah.
We weren't bringing over crap yet.
Exactly. In comparison, COVID-19 so far has killed only 1.2 million people and has had 47 million cases.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's just in comparison.
But it's still bad, people. Wear your masks.
Yes, please wear your mask. Learn from this story. So what's the flu? I'm sure most of you know. However, it is a virus and it attacks our respiratory system and it's incredibly contagious. It is transmitted by respiratory particles floating through the air or when you touch something. So use that hand sanitizer, people. I hand sanitize after I touch everything. So the flu.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, like, I'm just like really susceptible to getting sick, right? So I'm just trying to be very cautious.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be as nervous just because I don't have any of those pre-existing conditions. I'm, in my 30s, but since I'm pregnant, I'm definitely more cautious.
Well, that's the thing.
But sometimes I do forget, like, so this is kind of a funny story. I'm one of those people that, like, when I go through the store, I touch everything that has, like, a cool texture to it. And I forgot that, like, I was just, like, habit, you know, I don't even think about it. So I'm, like, walking through Target with my husband, and I was, like, touching this blanket, and then I touched this towel, and he goes, "Will you stop touching things? We're in the middle of a pandemic." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sorry."
Good job, Cody.
Yes. I was like, "Shoot, I forgot."
Yeah.
I had my mask on and everything, but it's just, like, habit.
Yeah.
You know, I just touch things, so.
Oh, and I'm kind of the same way, but not, I don't think to that extent. But like when I get out of my car, I'll put hand sanitizer on before I walk into the store. Mostly because I hate the smell of their hand sanitizer. Like I went to a convenience store
It
once.
smells so bad.
Oh, I went to a convenience store. I had to use their hand sanitizer. Made me almost want to puke from the smell of it. It was nasty.
Some of them smell real, like, alcohol-y, like tequila, and it makes me
Real
like,
bad. Yeah. Ugh. Anyways, so I always have like little sample hand sanitizers with me. So back to the flu.
Yes.
It spread so rampantly in 1918, and that was due to the fact that it was a new strain. Therefore, no one had any immunity built up for it.
Gotcha.
Which is essentially what's happening with COVID-19. It's just a new strain, and nobody has an immunity for it.
Mm-hmm.
The first wave was in the spring. There were typical flu symptoms such as chills, fever, and fatigue, and those people got better relatively quickly, and the death count was low at that time.
Okay.
However, the second wave came in the fall of that same year, wherein people were dying within hours or even days of experiencing symptoms.
Hours. Wow.
Yeah. Yes. So their skin turned blue and their lungs filled with fluid, causing them to actually suffocate. Yeah.
Oh, that's awful. What a horrible way to go.
Horrible way to go. I am after one of my open heart surgeries when I was 14, I believe I had like a fluid buildup in my lungs and it was the worst feeling. So can't even imagine going that way.
Gosh. Oh, no.
Yeah.
My grandma, who I never met, she died before I was born. She had lung cancer, and basically, like, I think pneumonia is what took her. So basically, like, her lungs filled up with fluid and she died.
Yeah, like it's horrible. Like I've had pneumonia a couple times too, and it's just awful. Awful.
I've, knock on wood, never had pneumonia.
This sucks. Within like a 2 to 3 month period, I had pneumonia twice. I had strep throat and a sinus infection.
Oh my gosh. I very rarely get strep as well. Like, I got it when I was little, but I don't think I've had it in as an adult yet.
No, it was horrible. Oh, she's so cute. At this time, a significant amount of people were dying. And it's believed that this was so severe due to a mutated virus that was being spread by those serving and moving around, spreading it to others without knowing. So those serving in like World War I.
Oh, okay.
Because World War I was occurring at this time.
Gotcha. I didn't even think about that, but yeah.
Yeah. So public health officials were also very unwilling to put in place quarantine laws during wartime, which obviously helped the virus spread even more. Because
that's so weird. That's how that works. Like,
yeah.
if your government doesn't like do anything about it, it spreads more.
Yeah. Yeah. See, COVID on crack. Of course, specific medical advances which would have helped in this situation didn't come about until about like the 1930s. And this was like between 1917 1919.
It's so just a little too early.
A little too early, of course. It became known as the Spanish flu only because Spain was hit particularly hard with it, and the news of this influenza began through news coverage in Spain. So basically the reason for that was Spain wasn't censoring the influenza like other countries were.
Mm-hmm.
And other countries were censoring this because the war was occurring at that time. So they wanted to try and keep morale up instead of being like, oh, here's some more shit piled on top of it.
Not only do we have a war, but
yeah,
here's a whole pandemic.
Exactly. And the Spanish actually believed that this came from France, and they called it the French flu.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So, very interesting. So, like with COVID, it is affecting mostly elderly people and people that have pre-existing conditions and they're susceptible to stuff like that.
Right.
With the Spanish influenza, it was actually like affecting young and healthy people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the regular flu strain wouldn't normally target them, but this new strain was infecting them, and that also included people serving in World War I, as I mentioned.
Yeah, wow.
So more people fighting in World War I died from the flu than from actual fighting in the war.
Wow.
Yes, which is just crazy.
Yeah.
Bad luck.
Yeah.
These individuals also assisted in spreading the virus by traveling around on crowded trains and ships because they were not contained and there were no quarantine laws, and so they just moved around and spread around. The virus, it's still unknown where it originated from.
Okay.
But the first known case was at Camp Funston in Kansas on March 11th, 1918.
Gotcha.
So in the US of A.
Good old US of A.
Yeah. It's theorized that infected soldiers from it. What? What the hell?
It also definitely sounded like you said infected shoulders.
Okay, this is the sentence. It makes no sense to me, and I don't know how to fix it right now because my brain is turned off because I work nights. It is theorized that infected soldiers from it with them to other military bases and also overseas.
I'm thinking you meant they took it with them from bases and overseas.
Oh my goodness.
It's a great sentence.
Well, at least you understood it. But yes, I think that's where it's getting at. Oh my goodness. All right. So, like COVID, when the 1918 flu emerged, doctors and scientists were unsure how to deal with it or treat it because it was so new and they didn't have great medical advances back then.
Right.
The first flu vaccine emerged in the 1940s, and since then, efforts have been made with flu vaccines in order to prevent another pandemic. So obviously that didn't really work since we have COVID, but
no. But COVID isn't a flu, so
yeah. But yeah, okay, yeah. It's still an issue.
Yeah.
As you would have guessed, due to the war, the availability of medical staff was very low. And even the ones available, they sometimes brought the flu with them as well.
Oh.
Yeah, so that wasn't very helpful. There are so many disease people that makeshift hospitals were created using schools and other buildings, and these were staffed by medical students.
Oh, gosh.
Scary. Some communities enforced quarantine rules and told people not to shake hands and do not touch each other. And also that public gatherings were prohibited and gathering places were shut down in some areas.
Makes sense.
To help alleviate the symptoms that people were having, they were also told to take aspirin.
Aspirin?
Aspirin.
Okay.
And so they were told to take a dosage of about 30 grams each day, which is actually super toxic.
Oh, perfect.
So they were told to take 30 grams, and anything above 4 grams is unsafe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, of course, as you can imagine, A lot of deaths that occurred in October are believed to have been from aspirin poisoning.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Checks with chart.
Yes. As the dead bodies kept piling up, there was a point where some people had to dig the graves for their family members themselves because there weren't enough resources available.
Yeah, that happened during the bubonic plague too. And then they also had to start making their own gravestones because they're like blacksmiths or whoever would make them.
As it is today, many businesses had to shut down due to employers and employees being sick, which sucks because I think they were going through the recession, like the depression at this time. So that was not helpful.
Right.
In the summer of 1918, another wave hit as soldiers infected with it returned from war. In one U.S. city, they decided to... Fucking stupid. You guys are stupid. In one U.S. city, they decided to indicate that the people getting sick just had a regular flu and not the Spanish flu.
Oh, of course.
So,
of course.
So, what a smart idea it was to throw a parade, a massive parade, and in only 10 days, 1,000 people were dead and 200,000 people were sick.
This sounds very similar to saying that COVID isn't a big deal and throwing rallies.
Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's good to know it's just not the generation before me, that it dates back further.
Yep, exactly. By March of 1919, so this parade happened in September of 1918, and by March of 1919, 15,000 people had lost their lives due to getting sick from this parade.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Other cities, other cities shut everything down, which ultimately kept their mortality rate at a low, which is smart.
Right. Makes sense.
In summer of 1919, the pandemic came to a close, quote, as those that were infected either died or developed immunity. Some believe that there was a vaccine created that like helped put a stop to this, but actually it was because everybody died or became immune to it. So
Gotcha.
there was no vaccine.
Okay.
Almost 90 years later, in 2008, researchers announced they discovered what made the 1918 flu so deadly. It was a group of 3 genes enabled the virus to weaken a victim's bronchial tubes and lungs and clear the way for bacterial pneumonia.
Oh, okay.
Which makes sense for the fluid building up in the lungs.
Yeah.
There was yet another pandemic from 1957 to 1958, which killed about 2 million people around the world.
Wow.
Another one was from 1968 to 1969, and only 1 million people died. And then the swine flu occurred from 2009 to 2010, and 12,000 Americans died. Then we have our beloved coronavirus, where it is secretly deadly, as people don't have symptoms for days, and they can spread the disease without even knowing it.
Right.
That's the end of my notes, but I do have a timeline for it just to kind of like draw everything together and kind of make it more cohesive.
Okay.
So in April 1917, with 378,000 troops, the U.S. is now joining World War I. And for context, it began July 28th, 1914 and ended on November 11th, 1918.
Okay.
So the war had already been going on for 3 years. In June that same year, to increase the number of troops, a draft is established and the Army starts training recruits in many camps, each holding 25,000 to 55,000 soldiers. In March 1918, in the United States, there are outbreaks of what appear to be the flu. More than 100 soldiers become sick with influenza at a fort in Kansas. The number of these cases quintuple within a week's time.
Wow.
Yes. Like, how crazy is that?
Yeah.
Over the next 6 months, intermittent flu activity spreads unevenly across the U.S., Europe, and more than likely Asia. April 1918, in a weekly public health update on April 5th, the first mention of influenza appeared. The study reports that in Haskell, Kansas, there have been 18 serious cases and 3 deaths.
Okay.
In May 1918, as they deployed for World War I, hundreds of thousands of troops fly across the Atlantic every month, bringing the flu with them.
Yes.
Yeah. September 1918, a second wave of the flu occurs in the U.S. at a training camp and in a naval hospital. A second outbreak of flu in the U.S. peaks between September and November. The second wave is particularly fatal and is responsible for most of the pandemic-related deaths. The Board of Health of New York City attaches influenza to the list of reportable diseases, and it is necessary that all cases of flu be isolated to the home or hospital. By the end of September, those same training camps as previously reported, they reported more than 14,000 cases of the flu, which is about 1/4 of the total camp, and it results in 757 deaths.
Wow.
In October 1918, the flu pandemic killed an estimated 195,000 Americans. Owing to the deployment of large numbers of nurses to military camps in the U.S. and overseas, and the unwillingness to use qualified African American nurses, the U.S. faced a serious shortage of skilled nurses in the fall of 1918.
You know what? That's your own damn fault.
Exactly. The American Red Cross chapter in Chicago is urgently calling for volunteers to help nurse the sick, even though they have perfectly qualified people to help them, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
With the pandemic flu viruses, Philadelphia is hit really hard, with more than 500 corpses awaiting burial, some for more than a week.
Wow.
Yeah. A maker of trolley cars donates 200 packing crates for use as coffins, and cold storage plants are used as temporary morgues. Chicago shuts theaters, movie houses, and night schools and bans public events along... What? Oh, I cut off half of my notes. All right. that bullet ends there. Guess we'll never find out what else they closed. Oh my goodness. All right. The Board of Health of San Francisco needs every person serving the public to wear masks and issues clear guidelines for all residents out in public to also be wearing a mask. Wear your damn mask, people.
Wear your mask.
Wear your damn mask.
An affront to your rights. You wear clothes.
Yeah.
Wear your mask.
Exactly. Same thing. Due to the number of flu illnesses and in the midst of World War I, New York City has a 40% decline in shipyard productivity.
Wow.
In November 1918, when people celebrate Armistice Day and soldiers start to demobilize, the end of World War I allows for a revival of the influenza.
Oh.
Yeah, very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Salt Lake City officials put up signs indicating when a house is in quarantine, and that's if members of that home have been struck by the flu.
Right.
So then their home is marked as to say these people are in quarantine. If they come out, like, something can happen, I guess. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
Like, I'm assuming it's kind of similar to what's going on now. Like, if you're supposed to be quarantining and the cops find out you're not, then you can be fined. So
right.
The U.S. military increased from 378,000 troops in April 1918 to 4.7 million troops by the end of World War I. So that's just more people to help spread. December 1918, public health officials start providing educational programs and public ads indicating the risks associated with coughing and sneezing recklessly. So don't cough and sneeze all willy-nilly because that's not good.
I feel like that now, like, whenever I go out to a store, like, if I cough, I'm like, I don't have COVID, I promise.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Like, it's just, that's the commonality now, right? Like, you just have to, like, I always sneeze when I look at the sun, and then, like, you walk into a store and it's like, I'm gonna sneeze all over you. It's fine. I'm not sick.
Exactly.
Yeah. The American Public Health Association Committee advises stores and factories to start staggering their opening and closing hours, and to also walk or bike to work where possible in order to reduce overcrowding on public transportation. January 1919. In the winter and spring, a third flu wave occurred, killing even more people. In the summer, the third wave subsided. 1,800 cases of influenza and 101 deaths were reported in San Francisco in the first 5 days of January, so during this third wave. Many residents of San Antonio are starting to complain that new cases of influenza are not being identified and that this is sparking another rise in influenza. In New York City, 706 cases of influenza and 67 deaths have been confirmed, prompting concern of a recurrence of serious flu activity. Boston City Hospital trustees are asking the mayor for a $3,000 special fund in order to study the treatment of influenza.
Okay.
And in February 1919, the number of reported cases in New Orleans drops. Therefore, it appears that the influenza has almost been eliminated. And as there is an obvious nursing crisis, Illinois puts into place a 1-year practical nursing program. So cool.
Okay.
So quick program. Well, instead of like a few years, right? It's just 1 year.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, they have qualified people that
right,
can do
yeah.
it, but why not, right?
But you know, whatever, let's put in a whole new program. Cool.
Exactly. And finally, in April 1919, while negotiating the end of World War I at the Versailles Peace Conference, President Woodrow Wilson, speculated to have been weak from influenza, collapses. He did, however, recover in July, and the White House stated he simply caught a cold from being in the French rain.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Also, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
Exactly. So, but anyways, that is my story on the Spanish influenza.
Awesome. Very informative and very mirror like what we have going on now.
Yeah, which is like, honestly, it stressed me out researching it because like COVID's starting to get to me and I'm like, this is just COVID on crack and I hate it.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Anyways, all done.
Well, we hope you liked our plague stories. If you want more of us, you can find us on TikTok at Histories and Mysteries Pod. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Histories and Mysteries, all spelled out. Or you can email us at historiesandmysteries515@gmail.com.
Yeah, we hope you guys have a great week and we hope that you enjoyed.
Yay! Bye, everybody.
Bye.